and connect the live Facebook as and when it does come up. Will that be fine? All right, it says it's streaming live. Great, so let's begin. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So on behalf of ISKCON South Africa, Devotee Care South Africa, welcome and thank you to our guests and live Facebook viewers to today's special introductory session that kind of introduces the Karuna care education and specifically training on compassionate care, the impact of loss and grief on spiritual growth. So we're really grateful that you made the time to join this Zoom call as well as the live Facebook broadcast. As you already know, we are living in unprecedented times where this COVID-19 pandemic is just crippling world economies and causing so much chaos in the lives of millions of people. And now it's not about numbers anymore. It's about names of people who you know that's affected by this COVID-19 virus and the devastating impact it's having. ISKCON really cares about you, your health, your safety, your well-being, and that's why we're here today. And then, look, a very special and warm welcome to our guest speaker this evening, Her Grace Rambhoru Prabhu. She's the founder of the Karuna Care Education and an early disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So Prabhu, welcome to ISKCON South Africa and particularly to Devotee Care South Africa. Thank you for making the time and effort to join or to support ISKCON South Africa in dealing with the current crises. Yeah. I guess that's what most of your discussion is going to be today. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much to be here. So nice to meet all of you. So, great. Yeah, there's so many ways to start this. As you have mentioned, we're all in this COVID crisis that doesn't seem to end. And, typically when we as devotees think about grief, we think of this verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, the wise don't lament for the living and the dead, right? And so we're feeling a little embarrassed if we're grieving. But something really important to know, grief affects all of us, and it's actually the flip side of bhakti. When we have love and care and we're working in the world, when there's loss, there's definitely going to be an experience of grief. And after being in the movement for 46 years, I realized we talk a lot about unconditional love and Sangha and the importance of Sangha, but what I've noticed is we don't really know what it looks like or how to do it. I mean, we can do puja and we can make offerings, we can talk philosophy, but when it comes to each other, I'm experiencing that people are at a loss to know how to respond to loss. And so, as a person who's trained as a professional chaplain and a trainer of people who go into hospitals and prisons and places where people experience chronic loss, there's an art and a science to how do you communicate care in a moment of crisis. And certainly life cycles have many losses, so there's going to be all kinds of losses.
Sorry, can I interject? I just wanted to introduce our co-GBC, His Grace Govardhan Prabhu as well, before you start. So welcome and thank you, Govardhan Prabhu, for attending this session. Yeah, if maybe you would like to have a minute before Rambhoru Prabhu speaks, Govardhan Prabhu.
Yes, thank you. Rambhoru Prabhu, we are just absolutely delighted to have you on African soil. Without your permission and without Smara Hari Prabhu's permission, I invited devotees from Mauritius, Botswana, Malawi to join in because it is such a critically needed discussion in an area that's not well understood. And the reality is that we will all be confronted at some time or the other to deal with something like this. Yeah. So we want to learn how to offer competent and caring emotional support to persons in crisis. And as you just said, being board certified chaplain, I mean, it's just Krishna's grace that we can hear you this evening. It's evening here in South Africa. So I'm sure you're going to get many devotees who are going to join. We are extremely grateful. Our hearts are full of gratitude, and we're delighted that you made time for us. And it's very kind of you indeed. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, glories to your wonderful service.
Thank you so much. So,
Rambhoru, sorry to interject again. We haven't properly introduced yourself. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Tara if she could maybe just give a good introduction of your good self, if it's okay with you.
Hare Krishna,
Tara?
everyone. I'm so happy to have Rambhoru here. I've attended one of her courses and it really changed my life. So I just want to tell everyone that she was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1974. And for many years, she assisted her husband, Preeti Das, establish and manage ISKCON ashrams in Europe, such as Germany, Ireland, and Switzerland, and one in India called Prabhupada Vani Ashram in 1990. She authored Food for Peace, Vegetarian Cooking for Beginners, and her recipes became celebrated as Indian cuisine modified for the Western palate. After living in Vrindavan, India for 8 years, and the ISKCON Mayapur International Headquarters for 2, she returned to the USA to earn a Master of Divinity and a Master of Science degree in patient counseling. She was board certified as a professional chaplain in 2008, a clinical partial educator, the doctoral level of pastoral care education in 2015, and is a grief support group specialist and director of St. Camilla Center for Spiritual Care, Urban Interfaith Chaplaincy Clinical Partial Education Program since 2010. And she is the founder and director of ISKCON Karuna Care Education since 2019. So now I'll hand over to her so she can tell us a little bit more about what Karuna Care is and what she hopes to achieve through this project. Hare Krishna.
well, Karuna, as you know, means compassion. And so we call
Coming through, Nanda.
Is somebody speaking to me, or are we just not muted? Is that what's happening? So the word Karuna means compassion, and my Karuna Care Education is a program to train devotees in 2 levels. You know, there are a lot of devotees who would like just to learn some skills for interpersonal connecting, to how to create heart connections with other people just in their service, because we're dealing with people all the time in our families, in our communities. Some of us are professional, and you know, often we are working alongside people we don't even know. I mean, you might be standing in RT for 15 years and not know the person playing the mridanga, because we never talk. We sing, we eat together, and we do business or something, but we really never sit down and hear each other's stories. So I'm training people just to get some basic skills to understand the art and science. There's a whole blend of behavioral sciences, theology, which comes together as education. Why do people do the things they do? Why do they behave the way they behave? There's a second mission I have, and that is to train a team. I have 15 already who have gone with me in this last year through an intensive training comparable to what a professional social worker or a counselor would go through, where they have practicum, case studies, and they are now qualified and ready to be companions or listeners who are compassionate to other devotees. I have a website named karunacare.iscon.org, and if you go on there, there's a tab that says Need Help. And anybody throughout the world can get on there if they're in crisis and send us a little message, which goes into our team bank, and one of our devotees will pick it up and respond to you. We have people who speak in Russian and Spanish and Hindi who can respond, and English, obviously. And we also have on there a link where people who are looking for more deep therapy of some kind, there's several links there if somebody wants to connect with a professional psychotherapist, which won't be me or any of our team, but at least it gives you a online facility to get help. And then there's a hotline for every continent, a link that will hook you up in India or Australia or Europe, where if you are suicidal and you need help right away, you can hook up there and find help. It won't be with one of us, perhaps, but at least you will have somebody at your fingertips you can go to. So a mission for me is out of the people who I'm just giving introductory training, I'm going to look for people who really have this as a compelling calling to be like you have cow protection and deity worship. We need people on the ground who are available and trained as a service. Like this is all I do, with devotees. My whole life is facilitating grief support groups, divorce support groups, resilience groups, and one-on-one counseling. It's just such a need, and I don't have enough help. So that's the second mission of the Karuna Care education. I don't know if that answered your question, but if not, ask me something else. I don't hear. Someone's talking. I don't hear.
I'm not sure if that was a question. Maybe someone's just unmuted.
Okay.
But maybe could you go more into the reason why you felt it necessary to start, and perhaps you can tell us about the day that you actually started it.
Well, as a professional, I had a lot of devotees asking me because I train Catholic priests, rabbis, imams, Muslim imam, Buddhist priests. This is part of the essential training to be a leader in a congregation. Every priest and pastor has to go through this practical theology program to be prepared to care for the congregation. So in order to get that certificate, they have to come to people like me to enroll in practical theology education, which means they have to do 300 hours in 3 months of pastoral conversation. They're going bed to bed and listening to people in all kinds of crisis and suffering and practice interpersonal skills of caring. And then they have 100 hours of classroom education. So I had devotees, when they learn about what I'm doing, why are you not training the ISKCON devotees how to do this? We have this growing movement. And, people are people. We're not liberated souls at this point. We are conditioned souls. So we have a lot of the same problems that non-devotees have. So I had thought about it a long time. I consulted with Giriraj Swami and Romapant Swami and Vaisesika Swami and, different leadership, Anutama, who's the ISKCON communication. And they said, yeah, we really need this. Just start. But in my anxiety about whether devotees would be able to have the capacity to learn this, how do I train them? Most of them don't have an education in this level, And on Janmashtami, through fasting and prayer, I realized just start and trust that Krishna is going to guide it. And on Janmashtami 2019, I just started. I just started to create it. And when I started walking in that direction, Krishna sent me people and energy and ideas, and I just started to experiment. Last year was a big experiment that taught me a lot. And now I have a core team of devotees who are constantly communicating with me, and we are now creating an association that will have continuing education like any professional organization, where even though you graduate, you still have a team to support and to draw from. So yeah, that's kind of why I got started, when I got started, because I felt like before I die, I need to download what I've learned. And Prabhupada taught us to do that. And not only that, in 1990, I was living in Vrindavan, and I had this dream. I don't share this much, but I'm going to share this with you. I had this dream where Srila Prabhupada was living in one of the underground apartments. We had underground apartments in India. It's very hot. So in Prabhupada Vani, we made it these little apartments underground. And in my dream, I had gone down and offering Prabhupada a plate of prasadam. And when I came up from my obeisances, Prabhupada looked at me and he said, can you ask your husband if you can take care of my personal body? And I woke up, he pointed to a set of Gaura-Nitai deities, and he said, without the mercy of Lord Nityananda, you cannot get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And then I woke up and trying to figure out what was that message. So I went to Gornitai. I started to look in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is the significance of Lord Nityananda? And what struck me is that he was sent by Lord Chaitanya to care for householders, particularly. He was sent back off the Sankirtan trail to go and be a supportive presence to the Sankirtan movement. And I took that to heart, but I wasn't sure how that was going to happen. When you think of Prabhupada talking about ISKCON as his personal body, that was how he would describe his body in the stories of the two sons who would fight over the father's body and rip it apart because, and he used that as an example to us as a movement. So don't fight, but we do a lot of fighting because we don't know how to connect. And, this has been for me a really important learning. How do we teach devotees what it means to actually communicate care and be authentic to ourselves and to Srila Prabhupada's philosophy? So that's my mission, is to try and raise awareness of heart-connecting relationships that are illustrated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and to lift up these 6 loving exchanges, 2 of which are revealing the mind in confidence and listening to someone reveal their mind in confidence. And I think we misunderstand what that means, confidence. In pastoral care, it means that it doesn't go on Facebook tomorrow. It means that I'm not telling your story. If you come and you pour your heart to me, then I am not allowed to share your story with someone else. And so I think as a community that's growing, and Prabhupada insisted that we not break into small camps, but we stay together. The only way we're going to stay together as a growing mission is to learn how to communicate with care. And it's an art and a science. It's not so easy, as you all probably know. It's not easy. Conflict is scary. And what typically happens when we encounter difference and conflict is we run away. And there's an art in using conflict to create increased human intimacy. So I'm trying to train some of that. So is that all right? Anybody have any questions about that or further? Yes. Brenda, is that Brenda? You're on mute. I can't hear you. Shall I help you? I think I can. Okay.
Yeah. Namaste, and thank you for this opportunity and the invite. I'm actually here on an invite that I received from my sister Veronica. So I was very excited to hear about this, that you're wanting to initiate and you're wanting to teach. I'm on a learning journey, and it's about human asset value and how to train and teach people how to maintain their human asset value and how not to dehumanize people around them and themselves, because there's a lot of self-harm that we've seen that's come about in this last year of lockdown, where people are self-harming. So it's don't dehumanize yourself, but also don't dehumanize the people around you. Now, I'm not an initiate, and neither am I a devotee. What do I need to do to qualify to come along on this journey and learn these wonderful skills that you are offering?
Well, I encourage people to start in one of my resilience groups. It's an on-the-ground place. It's a space that is confidential, sacred, and it's a drop-in. There's absolutely no commitment that you have to come every time, but I'm sitting there every Sunday, New York time, from 11 to 12:30, and I'm sitting every Tuesday on Zoom, this very Zoom link, from 7 o'clock to 8:30 in Mayapur. It's 7 to 8:30 New York time, but it's India time, 5:30 to 7. So there are 2 different time zones. People can drop in. They like it, okay. If they get something, if they don't like it, they don't have to come again. But it does create a container where people come and they share their challenge for the week. They may have a loss. They may be struggling with their faith. They may have questions that are philosophical, and how do we practice it? It's just whatever is there is what we're talking about. And if only one person comes, I'm sitting there for an hour and a half, and we're just talking with that person. So, yeah.
Would it be possible for me to get, or for us to get a Zoom link and some details on that, please?
Yeah, and the Zoom link, I think, is the same one that you're on right now.
Ah, okay.
It's the same. So I ask people to start there and see if they feel comfortable in that environment. And then I'm offering a course, several courses, but the first one will be on grief, as the impact of grief on spiritual growth. And that will be 2 time zones as well, starting February 26th. It's just 4 weeks, 5 classes. And one time zone is in the United States. I think it is 6 o'clock to 8 in New York time PM. But the one for your time zone will be, what did we decide? It's 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. New York time. And Tara can post. I think we have a poster prepared. She can maybe we can circulate that poster with the information on it. Yeah. And that will give another level. So now you're going to understand grief in all its features. We're going to do some little journal reflecting and practicing with each other, things to say, how to communicate with open-ended questions, affirmation, reflective listening. Those are just some very basic skills rather than judging and advising. And all too often as human beings, whether we're people of faith or not, we end up wanting to fix other people, and we want to tell them how we would fix their problem, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help. And especially if someone's suffering a loss. People say all the wrong things. Somebody's lost their baby, they've lost their child or their job. Now we're in COVID and people want to download the whole Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bible or the Quran. And philosophy doesn't heal the broken heart. It does not help. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but you can ask anybody who has suffered a deep loss. They will tell you the only thing that really helped me was the holy name. Everything people told me felt like they were pouring salt in my wounds. It came across as self-righteousness. And why does it come across as self-righteousness? Because the person who's trying to help is coming from their head. They're not connecting from their heart. So if you want to respond to a suffering person, first of all, you have to go to your heart region and first connect with some deep pain you've had in your own life. Because truth be told, we've all had a crisis, we've had a loss. Everybody has many history experiences of pain. We have to first go there and feel what they might be feeling. First of all, get in touch with, and from your feelings, now you know exactly how to respond. And it's not going to be philosophy. It just is not the right thing. It's just not. So, yeah, we should be preaching. And this is relational preaching. In Christianity, they realized after a long time, when students from seminary came out and became pastors of churches, that they didn't know how to manage things like death and grief and illness and stuff. And so they would consider this to be relational preaching, to enter into relationship and get close to people. And in this way, you can change and transform human hearts, not just talking at them. And there's a place for that too. I mean, in pastoral care, if you define the word pastoral care in a Christian context, in the Bible, it defines four roles of a pastor or a religious leader. We would say Brahmin, and one is they're prophetic. They sit in the pulpit and they talk philosophy. We do this every morning in Bhagavatam class. The second is they play the role of a king. They're managing, in the old days it would be a king, but they're managing. That's a role, to organize a religious organization. The third role is to be a priest. That means they do the ritual. We have our Brahmins going on the altar, and the Catholics, they do their ritual, that's the priestly role. And the fourth role of a pastor is to be a sage. That's the role of a chaplain. That's the role of a compassionate care companion. That was the role of Narada Muni. He would fly into the place where a person's having a life crisis and instill hope and give presence and also some philosophy, but he was entering in through the heart. And we have a team of devotees in my Karuna Care education courses that they're working on going through all of our books by Srila Prabhupada and lifting out all of the places where we can see pastoral care going on that we probably completely missed. And it's all over the place. You know, it's all we want to make, we want to love God unconditionally, but we also have to live or embody unconditional compassion for all living beings. That's part of our sadhana. Not so easy. Other thoughts? Any thoughts or comments or questions?
How do we pay or donate or contribute or bless you for this work that you're willing to offer us?
Okay, well, the course, we're in different economies, you know, so this is a problem. And so my American students, they pay for this particular course coming up, they're paying $100, but there's scholarship. And there's also, if you have not enough money, we have temple devotees, just give a donation. The reason I think it's important to give donation is because we are from a consumer society. Materialistic culture is, you know, how can I get something for free? And Srila Prabhupada, he talked about how if a bag of grain is thrown on the street, a bird will come and take just a few grains and just go away. He won't take more than he needs. But we know from our Western business culture, where it's projects over people, even we don't need it, we'll take it if it's for free. So I'm trying to teach my students and devotees is that, first of all, we've been given already so much. From Srila Prabhupada, we get air, we get, it's about reciprocating. That's a loving exchange, you know, offering gifts and receiving gifts. So I tell people, like in India, they have no money, you know, $15 is what they can give if they can, or $1, or we scholarship them. Everybody gets to take. Go ahead, Smart Hari.
Yeah, you know, if we're just looking at the current crisis of COVID-19 and the impact it's having on families, devotee families especially,
Yeah.
we want to be able to reach out and connect in a very special way, and you know,
Yeah.
maybe take us through the best, most practical, heartwarming ways of which we can connect with the devotees and offer that love and support to them.
Yes. Well, first of all, we have to reach out in a sense that I'm thinking of you. I care about you. And it can be as simple as getting your phone and sending a little voice text. I have many people. I have a woman I'm communicating with since 6 months whose husband suicided. And this has been a terrible, terrible pain for her. And just in the beginning, every day, sending a message, I'm thinking of you, I'm sending prayers, let me know how you're doing. And then she will send a message to have somebody who cares enough to be there and letting that person know I'm here for you. The second thing you can do is, you know, create a team who are available, because one person can't. If you have a huge congregation, be available for everybody. You might create a resilience group in South Africa. It's very easy to do, but to create a place, drop in, we're here. And if one person can't do it, you have shifts. You know, you could have some kind of way for people to reach out, but more importantly, to reach out to your congregation, even with a letter, letting them know we're thinking of you, we have you in our prayers. You know, this is how you get connected. Yeah, just don't forget about the people. That's just super important. You can't go in their homes, obviously, with COVID. You can't go in, but you can have meetings like this too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Just showing up is much more powerful than all the words. Just being there. And if somebody has lost their job and you want to find out, do they have food? Do they need help? You know, we're supposed to be support team for each other as a community. It's a surrogate family. So we might need to offer a couch. We might need to offer food. I mean, really, seriously, we can't do this without each other. So it can make all the difference between a person's leaving their bodies in despair. You know, the suicide rate has doubled in the United States since COVID. And spousal abuse has doubled. Child abuse has doubled because people feel isolated and they don't feel supported. And one of the things behind it is people don't have the words to express their pain. And this is why in Karuna Care education, we're learning to be aware of our emotions and how to name, I'm angry instead of punching you. When I'm frustrated, now I can say, I'm feeling angry, which will release you from the need to punch you or throw a pot at you because I'm totally frustrated. I don't know about your language, but I know in the United States, we have made the observation that in the American language or English language, there's no word after we say, I feel. We say all the time, I feel like a cup of coffee. I feel like I need to take a nap. And it doesn't have a feeling word behind it. And it tells me that the whole language is devoid of connection with our emotions. And so we're illiterate. We're really illiterate. We don't even know how to identify the kind of discomfort that is really a feeling because we don't know what a feeling is. Like, what's the difference between being sad or angry or afraid or even disgusted? That's a feeling, or surprised. So until we get that language, we can't even talk about our feelings. So that's part of training as well. And how feelings are giving us information about what we need. You know, so much our acting out and bursting out is because we can't say what I need. You know, that I'm feeling angry because my need for care is not being met. I don't feel like I belong. I feel afraid. Well, those things. It's just a lot. Yeah. Other thoughts?
So that actually reminds me of this concept of duty of care, which was kind of implemented a rollout, I think, in Australia, maybe a few decades back. And it's something that I'd like to inculcate as a culture here, duty of care. You know, we all know that our thoughts lead to words and that kind of shapes our emotions, and these lead to our actions that define who we are. So I want to propose this duty of care where everyone is very conscious of their thoughts, emotions, words, and actions at all times. But I guess that's something we will slowly introduce. And how do you feel about that concept, though?
Well, I'm not familiar with this as you have spoken about it, but I think it sounds like a really good idea. What I've started using to help educate is taking insights from the pundits from behavioral sciences who have been thinking about, I mean, we're not unique as a Hare Krishna movement in having interpersonal challenges. That's universal. But there's some really great tools that I've discovered that have been transformative for the students just to have an idea that, okay, I'm a victim. What is that? You know, and how do I get out of this toxic victim mentality where I'm blaming everybody for my suffering? And that's Krishna conscious as well. We know that we shouldn't be blaming the deliverer of our karma or whatever. But that sounds very cold and harsh to think in those terms. But there's a positive solution to that, the empowerment dynamic to move out of the victim role into being creators and co-creators with Krishna. So I introduce required reading for some for my students so that they get a whole theory that they can start to integrate with Krishna consciousness. It's all there in our philosophy, but in words they can understand and tools they can use to manage interpersonal feelings and raising awareness, just to know if you know anybody in your world who has suffered any kind of loss, then you know that they need care. Just know that. If in your community, on your newsletter, somebody's lost a job, you know they're grieving. You know that. So that's a person, just like in a body, if my toe is swollen and infected, all the energy of my body goes to that weakest link. So if ISKCON is a body and if ISKCON Durban is a body, then if the community knows one person has had a loss of job or a loss of home or whatever, all the energy needs to go to that weakest link. That should be healthy body, you know? And it is our duty when we have someone who's struggling in spiritual life to reach out. That's part of our sadhana. Absolutely. Yes, Swarup Damodar and Smita Krishna. Who I don't know whose hand was up first.
It's Swarup Damodar Prabhu, so his hand up there. Swarup Damodar
Okay.
Prabhu?
Okay. Thank you, Madhuji. Wow, that so far it's just been so wonderful, especially this last point you made about the body and how when the body gets sick, we attend to it. The entire body focuses on that weak, sick part. I wanted to ask about, so if we have this group of caregivers, dealing with the devotees and the community's challenges, their grief, their pain. What about those that are giving the care? You know, we need a structure to take care of them because they probably having their own challenges. And I see that as well because they're absorbing so much of stuff, you know, that they need now a place where they can have it, you know, taken care of as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have built that into the Karuna Care program, you know, because as part of the training, you also have now a colleague or a peership of those who are caring for you, with you as you do the work. So you have a team of people who meet regularly, and the first thing we do before we go to education is checking in. What are your challenges? What's on your heart today? What are your celebrations? And we start there. We download, we debrief. If there's a hard case that came up, we're talking about that, and everybody gets to have a space where they talk. I don't know if you're talking about people who do other kinds of care, but in my experience, it starts with listening care. And then from listening, you get to assess what does the person need, and then you can refer them to different services, like maybe they need food, so somebody has to bring food or whatever, you know, prasadam. But yeah, it is built into the whole team, just like if you have people worshiping the deity together, they have to communicate on how they can strategize to, if they need money, if they need to do a program or cow protection or management. And your relationships grow because you're sharing the service. And you're talking about, in confidence, for the sake and benefit of the person who's suffering, how can we help? So you're collaborating with other people, and you can also say, you know, I need a mental health day. I've given all I can right now, and I'm having what we call compassion fatigue. I need a break. So then you have a buddy who you reach out to and say, I've got to deal with myself. I've got to care with myself right now. Can you please take this person on? So you have to have a team. You cannot do this by yourself. Yeah. We need to be cared for as well. It's true. Was Smita Krishna, wherever he was, he had his hand up, but I don't see him now. Oh, there you are. Did you have a question? Oh, nope. Okay. Other thoughts?
I was wondering perhaps if you wanted to give a practical example of giving compassionate care. Perhaps someone would like to volunteer and you could just speak with them a little bit.
Okay. Who has a problem? We can't. Let's see what happens. Who has a problem they'd like to share? Nobody. Nobody has any problem.
I could be your demo.
Okay. All right. So you tell me.
Okay. Mataji raised her hand. Would she like to go?
Yeah.
Brenda's offering herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you were, let me just to preface, so people, if as a learning moment, if you had now just showed up on my Zoom, we'd made an appointment, and you showed up on my Zoom, and I don't know you, but we've had an email exchange, and I don't know where she's gone now. Brenda, did she pop off?
No, I'm here.
I can't see you. Oh, there you are. You're gone up there. So I would say, Hare Krishna, Brenda, you know, what's on your heart today? That would be my first question. What is on your heart? Tell me what's going on. How can I serve you? That would be my first question. And then you start talking.
Yeah. So in demo mode, and I'm going to go with something that I'm picking up that's quite prevalent on an energetic level, and it's anxiety. There is an anxiety that I feel as an individual. I feel a collective anxiety. I live in a city that's very anxious, and given the individual anxiety, my community's anxiety, my family's anxiety, and the anxiety of the city that I live in, there's just this level and emotion of anxiety. I cannot, and I'm role playing. So what generally my clients would say is, I can't put into a color, I can't give you a feeling, but there's this underlying emotion that's unsettling, and it makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel unsettled.
Okay. And so it sounds to me like you have some, what you would call free floating anxiety. You don't really know where it's coming from. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any story that you tell about that free floating anxiety? You have some words you can put to it.
You know, I tend to talk to my family, and I only talk about anxious stuff. I have an inability to make positive conversation. It revolves around COVID and people dying and people that we know, and it's unpleasant, it's negative, and I have this need to allow my anxiety to flow over into those that I come into contact with as well.
Okay. Well, can you talk a little bit about what is your greatest fear? Because anxiety is very connected to fear. So what's underneath that? What's driving that?
Possibly the loss of loved ones.
Okay. You want to say something more about that? You want to a little more specific?
Loss of loved ones, loss of job, loss of finances, loss of income. So a lot of loss.
Yeah.
There's this fear of losing.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like attached to that is loss of control, loss of a predictable life, loss of a future, perhaps anticipatory grief there, right?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with
Yeah.
that? And perhaps some fear or confrontation of your own mortality as you see all these things happening. Gosh, maybe that's going to happen to me too.
Yeah, possibly, very possibly, yeah.
So this is really what we do. I'm just going to pause here. Is helping the person talk and tease out and get clear, because she's described something that when a person's in anxiety, typically they move to fighting, or they withdraw, or they freeze, or they leave the room. And pretty much everything is driven by anxiety. So figuring out how this person is responding to their anxiety is important. I might go to also asking Brenda, have you ever experienced this much anxiety before? Tell me a time when you've had an experience like this before in your life.
Typically, what I tend to hear is when people go through big transitions in their lives. So I had to move cities. I had to leave my family home. Uncertainty, because now I'm going into a different city. I had a big change of job. So what I was familiar with, I'm no longer familiar with. It's a brand new team. So big transitions that happen in our lives and I'm going to say in my life, I moved jobs, I moved cities, I had an unfamiliar team to work with.
Okay, so you've had an experience like of being terribly in anxiety before.
Yeah.
Right? You're telling me that. And so how, maybe you can share, what did you do to cope at that time? What helped you cope when that was going on?
So I started doing the little things. I started slow and steady, getting used to my colleagues, connecting, keeping in touch with my family, going for walks in my new neighborhood, getting familiar, joining a local club, joining the local gym, starting to connect. I started to connect more.
Okay, so that sounds pretty positive. So how did that help?
And it worked pretty well.
Okay, so then you might say to the person, well, maybe you could try some of those things. Maybe that would be the thing to do now. Sounds like you've solved your own problem. No?
Yeah.
So in this way, in compassionate companioning, it's not about fixing the person, because we understand the answers are within the person themselves. Super soul is there. They are the experts of their own situation. But when we're in crisis, we regress, we lose all our intelligence, we can't think critically because the anxiety makes us confused. So you can be very helpful You don't have to be a professional to do this, but just be a really good listener and reflecting back what they've said and empowering them to figure it out. And they just need somebody to help them tease it out. Sitting with them, not getting impatient. Our biggest challenge in doing that is we want to hurry up and fix it, and we want to tell them to suck it up, get over it, and we get tired of hearing people's problems. But in order to digest and heal from a crisis or grief, we have to chew it, just like we have to chew our food till it becomes water and then it digests. And same thing, our emotions have to be processed by expressing them outwardly rather than having them just stuck here or manifest in illness. When one person is in grief, their immune system is very much compromised, and you're going to see now physical ailments appear that normally wouldn't appear, because the grief, if it's not processed out, it gets stored in our consciousness and also in our bodies, and it comes out at mental and physical illnesses like anxiety and depression, suicidal ideation, and things like heart disease, cancer. The liver holds the anger, the kidney holds anxiety. Grief is mainly held in the lungs. And very interesting that so many elders get COVID because many of them have grief they're holding. It is so interesting that COVID is a lung issue, respiratory issue. So the body is definitely part of the mind, and we have to tend to these things. You can be very helpful just by listening and helping them figure out without rushing or criticizing and judging or preaching, just being present. It's so simple and so hard to do. So that's my little demonstration. You all can do this. What else? Yes, Galaxy S9. Unmute yourself. I can't hear you. I can maybe unmute you too. Ask to unmute. There you go.
Hare Krishna Mataji. My name is Veronica Mira Devi. I'm actually from ISKCON Escort, South Africa. My question to you is that we recently in Escort launched a COVID care program where we were delivering food packages to people.
Nice.
But yes, so but on this journey, we gave out quite a few, and as I approached certain homes, I found that the living conditions were not good, meaning that, they have beautiful homes, but their yards are being neglected, and there's no reason for that. So I found it, one of the things I was thinking about, how do we approach these families without hurting them or insulting them in any way, to say, look, you have so much to be grateful, so much gratitude in life. Please, can we just clean up or take care of the environment around them, like their yards, for an example, their homes? Is there a way that we can approach them without hurting their feelings, or, we don't want to insult them in any way? So how can we approach that?
Well, let me just say, I'm not in your context, nor do I know the culture of the people that you are talking about. And so I would be really dishonest to try and give you some simple answer. I know that you're talking about, you're uncomfortable with their yard, right? You're saying, God, I'm really uncomfortable seeing the disarray of their living condition. Is that correct? You're uncomfortable.
I think, okay, so I think because they're going through such a difficult time, they've kind of lost interest in everything around them, like they've lost interest in you understand what I'm saying? So we can bring it all together for them to say, look, you can put everything together to make it complete. Start loving what you already have gratitude for what you already have, appreciate what the Lord has given you. That kind of bring them into an awareness. You know,
But that's
bring an
easy to
awareness.
say if you haven't lost your job or you haven't lost your loved one. That's easy for you to say if you're not grieving. But if they're the ones who have lost those things, for you to
Yes,
now point those things out is again insulting. It's hurting. Now, if you want to really care about those people,
yes,
and I don't know these people, but if they had lost a loved one, say their child died or their husband died, it would be the same thing, losing all interest to care about their taking bath, clothing. People just can't do it because they're already so overwhelmed. It is helpful, however, for neighbors to come by and say, I care about you. How can I help? I don't know what to say or do that would give you comfort. Be honest and humble. What would help you at a time like this? And let them tell you. You may be like bursting to get them to clean up and stuff. And you're ready to go in and clean up and do their laundry for them. And maybe that's what they need you to do. But to come in, unless you can really empathize with the pain they're feeling at the loss of a job or are struggling for food or the embarrassment about that, perhaps there's some shame around, not having a job. I know people are very personal and private about that. And
yes,
so
yes,
to
yes.
come in and try and give them what do you call it, a pep talk about cleaning up because they should be grateful is kind of self-righteous, to be honest. You really, if you care about them, offer yourself to serve them in some way. If you're aware they can't do it, can I help? If you have the time and willingness to really do that. It's so much easier to get, you do it, suck it up, I'm uncomfortable looking at you in your suffering. But that's where a companion joins a person where they are in their suffering and then helps them from their perspective. Let me draw you a picture here. I use it all the time with my students. Okay, so say, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes,
Here's
I
the
can.
person who's suffering down here. He's totally overwhelmed with grief. He's in a hole. And there you are up here. You're looking down in the hole, like with pity. Oh my God, what are you doing down in that hole? Why don't you just come up and be where I am? Well, because my wife died and I don't know how to wash clothes or I don't know how to cook for myself. Well, just come on up. I'll show you how to do it. Well, that's kind of you looking down on them. It's again, pity is self-righteousness. The real companion who cares has to get down in that hole with the person and sit with them in that hole. And now you have perspective because you now know what it looks like from down in that hole. It looks different when you're up here looking down on people, but not until you actually empathize and are joining them where they are, can you together help them create a plan together. How do they get out of this hole? That's what we're training in Karuna Care education.
Okay.
And the biggest challenge we have as people who think we have so much spiritual knowledge is to apply it inappropriately at the wrong time, and that can cause harm. It's ethically,
Yes,
it's a real ethical issue, and that's why, in even being trained to educate chaplains, I have more training than a brain surgeon because people who do this work know how easily it is to hurt a person's faith. You can totally break a person's faith by inappropriately connecting with them. So it's
yes,
very
yes,
tricky. It's like doing.
yes, yes.
I see Smita Krishna has had his hand up a long time. Would you like to open your screen and talk to me? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for such an interesting presentation so far.
Thank
Please
you.
accept my humble obeisances. Honors to you and Srila Prabhupada. At the beginning, you had begun to speak perhaps on a particular train of thought, and then, the introduction started to come in, and then that, I was kind of latching on to what you were saying, but then, I couldn't quite follow that. But I don't know if you can still remember what the train of thought was there.
I'm almost 70. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Yeah.
But,
Good luck with that. You better ask me again.
so I would be keen to know, what would be the process that you take your students through from the beginning to the point of bringing them to perhaps, just being the novice
Yeah.
care person until, you develop the experience like you have. And maybe it's more than experience also. I feel there has to be a very great spiritual intuition in the kind of work you're doing.
Thank you. But I think everybody can learn this. Everybody can learn this. I have professional students who are going for board certification. I have devotees. I start them first with themselves. That's the first place. We train in professionals. I never take more than 6 people. They pay me big bucks to just give all my energy to 6 people that I'm breathing, thinking, training. They're my babies for 3 months, you know. We are talking every week for an hour. We are in class 8 hours a week solid. We're on Zoom. They are talking to people pastorally 32 hours a week. And they practice and practice. And in the classroom, we're learning how do we create connection. We're learning also about my traumas. We all carry childhood trauma with us that informs how we behave and how we think. And so much comes from mom and dad, you know. We have these 2 voices, mom and dad, and we have a long way to go to find our voice. So we go through, learning about Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and those things to help us see what our personality types are, how do we manage anxiety. We learn some skills, and then I throw them out to the world. And they have to start talking to people in a compassionate way. And they make lots of boo-boos, you know, and they bring them back to the group every week and they talk about, gosh, the guy threw me out of the hospital room. I knocked on the door and I said, I'm a chaplain and I'm here to listen. And I go, get out of my room, you know, and so I felt so bad. Now you're coming back and you're talking with your peers and getting support. And now you're doing something called the clinical method of learning. That means action, then reflection, and then action. It's a cycle. We do it all the time. We call it lifelong learning. So I'll tell you an example how we do it every day of our lives. I have an idea in my mind that I'm going to go to the store and buy tomato sauce. I have an idea it's going to be low salt, maybe no onions, you know. So then I go to the grocery store and I see there are 20 types of tomato sauce in the market. So I don't know which one to pick. I pick one thinking maybe it's the one I have in my mind. Then I go home, I put it on my pasta, and I go, that's not the one I had in my mind. Now I have to reflect. What did I hope to get? And now I have to choose a new action. So it's a process of experimenting, then reflecting on what worked and what didn't work by case studies and dialogue and stuff, then trying again. And over time, what happens is it starts to click. That worked. When I said that in that way, the person responded. I felt a sense of connection. I saw Krishna in our relationship. So it's a process. It takes a lot of time. My ISKCON devotees, they only have to do 4 hours of conversation a week, which is not much, but still they learn. Still, it has transformed even their relationship with their kids. They practice on their kids. They practice on their husbands and wives. And their wives and husbands are going, what happened to you? You're listening to me. You never listened to me before. This is amazing. Yeah, let's do some more of that. So they do that. And then I have a Google Classroom on my Hare Krishna devotees. And they have several hours of videos I put up. I'm explaining reflections, connecting it to our philosophy, some of the behavioral sciences. They read books, but they every week come together for 2-3 hours and they offer a case study. Everybody has an assigned time when they do a case study. They have to do a weekly reflection every week and turn it in. I read that. I talk to them. You know, I have individual time with them. And at the end, they have a test. They have to do a final evaluation, evaluating their growth. They have to make a goal, learning goal, which has to be related to a behavior pattern that they noticed. I mean, if you actually stop and look at your behavior and you think in terms of unconditional love of God, you're now looking at the behavior of Lord Chaitanya, someone who is fully in love with Krishna, and then here I am. Now, I need to get here. This is my life goal. I want to develop unconditional love. There's a lot of things holding me back from love. So they have to, in the beginning of the semester, they have to choose what is that behavior pattern that they notice in themselves that prevents them from being all that Krishna has created them to be. So a lot of the time it's, I judge people all the time. That's one I get from devotees and priests, and that's a hard one. I'm afraid of conflict. You know, if somebody disagrees with me, I'm either pretending to agree and then I hate them underneath, or I'm judging them in my mind and then talking about them with someone else. So they have to write me a contract that they're going to work on that thing for 3 months. And every week they're reflecting, how am I doing on that? So in this way, it's your self-directed program, and I'm facilitating it, but you're the teacher of your own learning. That's really what it is. Did that help, Smita?
Yeah, I probably need 3 years for that list.
Well, it's a gradual process, and it's like Krishna consciousness. It's practice. Everything, it's just practice, you know?
Yeah.
Practice, feedback, reflection, try it again, you know? It's embarrassing, you know, you calling people up and you say something and they feel judged and they're going, nope, nope, nope. I've tried that. Nope, nope, nope. You know, everything you say, they're like, I feel like you're judging me, and now you really get the feedback, and you just have to get over yourself. And if you really care, you're going to get up again and try to care again. That's all. We're not attached to the result. It's a process.
So are we applying any like particular psychological counseling theories and
Oh,
stuff
sure.
that have been
Yeah.
particular?
The difference, Smita Krishna, and what a chaplain does and a psychotherapist or social worker is we don't prescribe, nor do we believe in the philosophy that we can medicate and solve a problem. You know, in our view, underneath so much of mental illness and stuff is isolation, loneliness, and grief, traumatic grief, and that if what people need the most to heal is to feel themselves surrounded and belonging to a small group of caring people. So my vision of what Prabhupada was trying to do with ISKCON is creating a surrogate family, because most of us have come from families that are dysfunctional. Some of us have been abused. We've had, you know, fathers and mothers who have been alcoholics or absent or whatever. Everybody has been wounded by Kali, you know, this Kali Yuga. And so when we come to the movement, we're looking for a new family. And this is why this Sangha is so important, because we have the platform, we have the philosophy that can heal broken human hearts. But we as devotees who are receiving people need to be able to look beyond a person's external presentation of themselves into their perfect, pure spiritual soul. That is Satchit Ananda. That's the challenge, is to not get bewildered by somebody who's a little different or eccentric or whatever it is that people are or they appear to be. The task for us as devotees is to be able to remember ourselves and others as Sat Chit Ananda. That means eternal being of wisdom and joy. Bliss is joy in English. That's what that means. And if you're finding yourself not joyful and not knowing what to do, then you still have work to do. It's just a good test to know, am I situated in myself as Krishna created me to? No, I'm not joyful. Well, then you're probably in Maya. Let's work on it, you know? You're bewildered. I'm bewildered. And since we're all conditioned souls, we have a lot to help each other with. Today I'm in Maya, you can love me in spite of myself. Tomorrow you're in Maya, I will love you in spite of yourself. And when I feel loved by you, then I can also love myself. And when I love myself, I can also give it back to loving you too. It starts with having compassion for you. That's the trick. So. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was reminded about that. Devotional services, everlasting and joyful.
It
I was
is.
told that. Yes, so that's true.
If we're really rightly situated. So often we're trying to preach to people or inspire people, but we aren't situated rightly ourselves. So first, working with yourself is a real responsibility first, before you now go out. We preach actually to save ourselves. The thought that we are going to save the world is probably illusion. But the world will change if we take care of our own issues. That's going to change the world. So if we project our issues out on other people, it's just the shadow. We have to first deal with the substance, which is ourselves. Then the world will truly change.
Thank you
Wow,
so much.
thank you. That's really inspiring. I really love what you said. There's another question here from, gosh, I lost it now. Ramanindini Devidasi. Would you please speak a bit about those that experience being isolated due to COVID lockdown? She knows of 2 persons in their 70s who are feeling this way because of anxiety and living by themselves.
Yes. So are you having someone ask me something, or are you asking me a question on her behalf?
I'm asking on her behalf.
I see. Yeah. No, I'm isolated myself. I live in the basement of my 92-year-old mother, and I don't get to see the devotees, although they sometimes bring prasadam. So it's very hard. And if they're not techno savvy either, if they don't know how to get on the internet and do a Zoom conversation, they're really alone, and it's very dangerous. It's actually really dangerous, because in isolation, then the mind will go to the lowest common denominator and overwhelm, and people do contemplate suicide, and they do. We just had a suicide in Gita Nagari not even 2 weeks ago. Devotee, just felt very isolated and couldn't reach out. I'm encouraging everybody in COVID, if you feel that your mind is suggesting things, reach out. In fact, you should be reaching out anyway to people. Get on the phone, annoy them, doesn't matter if they're annoyed. Find people who will listen, and I think we need to encourage devotees not to feel shy. And if you have devotees that who are isolated, then you reach out. You really have to do that. It can be a matter of life and death. And sometimes we have this notion, I'm going to reach out tomorrow or the next day. I don't have time. And it's too late. Tomorrow comes and they have taken their life. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is happening right now. In ISKCON as well. We are vulnerable to these kinds of things. So please, if you know people who are isolated and elders and they're depressed, reach out. Just let them talk. Just let them talk. That's all. Just important. Ask them questions. Tell them, hear their story, whatever it is, let them talk. Just really, really powerful healing, just to have somebody to listen. You don't have to be a professional to listen. You just have to have a heart in the right place. You don't need a degree to do that. Just be mindful.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so important. Other thoughts?
Hare Krishna, I was thinking maybe we could take one last question, and then after that we could just perhaps go over the course details and see the interest in that, because I feel like that is one thing that we can all do, is get ourselves trained up in order to give care to others.
Yes. Okay. Do you have some specific questions?
No, I was just seeing if anyone else has a last question, but it doesn't seem so. So perhaps we could just cover the course details.
Okay. So this 4-week course that's coming up, it will be, I think for South African time, we decided it would be 7:30 to 9:30 New York time. I don't know what time that is in wherever you are.
That's 2:30 to 4:30 p.m.
And that's a Saturday, because we felt like in Africa, Saturday would work better. And the Mayapur devotees agreed to move their Hati parade. We all go to the Hati parade, that elephant parade in Mayapur. So they're sacrificing their Hati parade to be able to join you on a Saturday morning. So it will be, the first class will be basically an introduction, an orientation, helping people get to know each other, because they will be breaking out in groups to get to know each other as 2s and 3s. We're going to do every week some practicing. We're going to learn some listening skills. We're going to reflect on our own loss. Everybody's going to pick a particular loss, because we've all had something in our life. And we're going to, in the first class, we're going to pick some loss to work on throughout the 4 weeks, to reflect on, using Alan Wolfeld's grief support process. We're going to do a 30-minute PowerPoint that will be followed by discussion just to educate about various processes of grief and stages. And then in the end, in the last class, we are going to, the second, third, and fourth classes will just be more of the same thing, where we are PowerPoint, questions, information, and then we will break out in groups and practice some of these things based on the journals. All the students will be keeping a journal and reflecting on certain questions. And then when they come back to the group, I will zoom them out into groups of 2 or 3, and everybody gets to share those. And then we'll come back and discuss as a group. And then in their final class, it will be a wrap up and probably information on how to get more skills, listening skills, because that's the key is how do I companion people in different circumstances, and maybe more training, maybe resources like books you can read on your own, and continued education. I will be looking for people who show up in these groups, for people who strike me as being called to do this work. And not everybody is, but I will then point them to another track of training that will go perhaps even deeper, more to the level of professional training. So I guess that's all I can say about that, Tara.
Yes, and we could perhaps just cover the payment and by when they should register by.
Well, we're asking people, the 19th is a week before. So we'd like to know how many people we're going to have. Naturally, human behavior, people come at the last minute, I just heard about it and I went, can I do this? Yeah, we're not going to turn anybody away. If, we're asking for a donation because we have to support the program as it grows. Right now I'm in New Vrindavan, and my vision is, I'm just in the process of buying a little piece of land that I'm going to make a basic Karuna Care listening center, which will be part of New Vrindavan for devotees and guests to come and have a space where they can learn in person, in small groups. We will have healing rooms. And so the American donations will also be funneled into that. It goes to ISKCON Prison Ministry, books and postage, and for giving emergency help. If you don't have any money or manpower, you can't grow a program. And so if you're doing devotee care, you need to have some bank. So what I've decided to do with Africa and India and places in South America where it doesn't translate into much if you turn it into American dollars, is that you all should donate what you can, of $15 would be great. If you can even donate $1, and it will go into a fund in South Africa, and it will be used for South African Karuna Care education purposes. It'll just be part of your growing program and initiative to help educate. And that goes to buying books. When you're a student, I often will scholarship books because you may not have them in South Africa. I just shipped a set of books to a devotee in Africa, and the postage alone cost $40. And that's a lot in US dollars. So yeah, I don't know what you have listed there. I think on the website it's for Africa $15. I think India is $15. If you're struggling and you can't pay that, I will scholarship you that. We will just come. Nobody will be denied education, So, and it will go to, I guess, Tara, you are handling that, and there will be a fund. And as we continue to educate in Africa, maybe we build a fund. And then now you have a fund to help devotees. In my future vision, especially in third world countries where you need administration as this grows. We need translators also to translate. We are already working on publications. I have 2 devotees working on going through all of Prabhupada's books and pulling out compassionate care topics just to raise awareness that it's all there. And publishing books costs money, In the end, I would like to be able to offer a stipend to people who are giving this as their service, just like in the deity department in our country, they have to come up with their own funds to support their deity department. And the cow people have to have funds to support their cow people. So it would be wonderful if the donations that come from our education could also offer a stipend to those who are permanent, ongoing, compassionate care companions for this ISKCON. And that's why we ask for donations. That's where they go. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I've also just posted the link for the South African registrations on the chat group.
Yeah, right. And then we will, if we have all your emails and stuff, then if there's a last minute change, I want to have that so we can have blast out. We probably will make also a WhatsApp group, and you'll be connected to whoever's on that class. So in between, you can reach out, and that'll connect you to Mayapur devotees, as well as there's some American devotees who will be joining that class because the Saturday time works. I have also Latvia and Czech Republic and Brussels. If that works for them better, they will join too. So you may meet a whole bunch of people. Okay. Anything else? Smart Hari.
Yes, we've been going on for an hour, 20 minutes or so, and I think maybe we should wrap up. If I could maybe ask His Grace Saurabh Damodar Prabhu to just offer a vote of thanks, and we can wrap up from there. Saurabh Damodar Prabhu, is that okay with you?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. Well, first, I'd like to thank all the participants this evening. We had at one point about 65 or so on Zoom. I'm not sure how many we had on Facebook, but thank you all so much. I mean, I think I could represent you all by saying what a wonderful experience it has been for the last hour and 20 minutes with Rambhoru Prabhu. I mean, one can just very tangibly perceive her transcendental passion for this service, and one can feel her spiritual potency also running through it. So it was such a nice experience, and I want to, really, really deeply encourage all the participants here this evening to seriously consider somehow adjusting your schedules for the next Saturdays from the 26th of February to join this program.
The first class is the 26th. Actually, you will be the 27th because we're doing Saturday morning. Sorry, it'll be the 27th Saturday. I don't know if that's Saturday for you all. I don't know how that works. Tara, is it Saturday in South Africa?
It is.
Yes, sorry, the 27th.
27th. Okay, Saturday morning. Saturday for you. Yeah.
So, no, wait, let's get this right. You are 7 hours behind South Africa, and you are starting at?
7:30 a.m. New York time.
Okay, so 2:30 our time in South Africa, starting on the 27th.
And it will end on March 27th, 4 weeks later.
Yes, March 20th. So yeah, I really strongly encourage and humbly encourage at the same time all of you on this call to please try and adjust your schedules to join this program. The cost, I think Mataji mentioned, was $100 normally.
Well, that's for United. That's a whole different economy. I'm not.
No, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. That it's $100 there, and what we're getting at is like such a fractional amount.
That's fine.
And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to take advantage of. So please, devotees, try and get involved. This will help you. By helping others, it will help you. It'll help us. And personally, I could say, every other day I'm involved with trying to help some devotee through something. And I'm always like worried, am I saying the right thing? Am I just messing them around? Am I giving them something that's going to hurt them? I'm really worried, Like Prabhupada did say, preaching means to know what to say and what not to say. And care also means to know what to say and what not to say. So I'm really looking forward to those aspects that will guide me personally on how to really properly benefit the devotees. So I think you all are in the same boat. I want to thank Narahari Prabhu for his resilience in devotee care, keeping the flag flying and not giving up despite so many challenges. And I think we got a wonderful injection here this evening, Smarahari Prabhu, in the form of Rambhoru Prabhu, to come and offer us this wonderful opportunity. So devotees, please take full advantage. And Madhuji, thank you so much for this.
Can I just say one last thing about, you just mentioned resilience. And if you have people who really, need to connect, they can be pointed to either one of the resilience groups. We have one on Tuesdays from 7 to 8:30. You can jump in. It's the same link. Most of the devotees there are Mayapur, but it would work with your time. If you have somebody who's alone, isolated, and just wants to hang out, even just to see people and talk and listen, that's a good place for people to show up. They may feel too shy to share, but they can just be there. So I would encourage, if you have people who are feeling alone, and like these two people you were referring to, alone in their house, they're lost. Boy, does it lift your spirit to have camaraderie and connection with other people. Doing this alone is just hopeless. We can get through anything if we're united in care. Anything you can cope with if you have other people behind you. Huge. That's all I want to say.
Smarari Prabhu, over to you.
Well, on behalf of Devotee Care South Africa and ISKCON South Africa, I would like to extend our eternal gratitude to you, Mataji, for extending yourselves in the manner that you've done. We can go on listening to you for all eternity, but time is against us, and I suppose you're very tired as well. So on behalf of everybody, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And I can see a lot of interest from the chat that a lot of devotees do want to register, and that's just great. So we will assist from South Africa in terms of coordinating that, and we'll be in touch. So once again, thank you so much.
All right. So nice to have met you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to
Smarari Prabhu, Rambhoru Mataji, there was just something I was